Hi friends, welcome to my kitchen. If you're new here, my name is Jay and today we're going to do a meal prepping day. I've got a lot of really great recipes for you and I'm so excited to show you. I have it all mapped out right here. We're doing mozzarella stuffed meatloaf, creamy garlic mashed potatoes, honey butter rolls, and a peanut butter freezer pie. And these are the things that Tom and I, my husband and I, are going to be eating throughout the week this week. It's Sunday, it's about 9 o'clock in the morning. I don't have a ton of time because I have a bridal shower that I'm going to. I have to leave at 1 o'clock. My sister's coming here to the house and we're riding over there together. So I have a lot of cooking to do in a short amount of time. So I have all of my recipes here. The honey butter rolls are where we're going to start since they have to rise. And this is a Sally's Baking Addiction recipe and I'm gonna put the link straight to her recipe in the description. I've got the mozzarella stuffed meatloaf here. I'm combining and kind of making my own peanut butter freezer pie based on 2 different recipes. And then I've got my creamy garlic mashed potatoes. And this came out of a magazine at work and I can't remember even what the magazine was, so I can't really link that for you, but I'll try and give you a recipe in the description for that. So that is what we are doing. I'm gonna try and stay on task because we have so much to accomplish today. We're gonna start with the rolls and I have everything laid out for that right here. And then over here, because you guys know I have no counter space, if you're new here, I have what I call a shoebox kitchen. I'm standing here and I can touch counters, fridge, stove and oven, and a cabinet space over there. So I mean, it's very, very small. So I have to use every inch that I have efficiently. So this is my working space. This is where I like to stand to actually work. And then over there, I've got all the supplies, all the ingredients that I need for everything that we're making today so that I can just kind of swap and grab and I'm not having to open cabinets and fridge and cupboards while I'm filming. So that's that. Let's get started. I've got my recipe right here. I've got a cup of whole milk on the stove right now warming because we have, to start in our mixer here, a cup of whole milk, 2 1/4 teaspoons of yeast, and I have my Azure Market yeast that I like to use, and half a teaspoon of sugar. And that's where we start, and we want the yeast to become foamy in the mixer. That's how you know your yeast is good and active, and then we'll move on from there. So let me go ahead and get this milk warmed up and in here, and I'll be right back. Okay, I've got my cup of warm milk here in my mixer. It's supposed to be 110 degrees. I don't have any thermometers, so I just kind of stuck my pinky in it and said, feels warm. Then we need half a teaspoon of sugar, and the sugar helps to kind of wake up the yeast, and so that's the purpose of that. So let's get that in there, half a teaspoon of sugar. And then I personally like to get the sugar dissolved in the warm milk or warm water, whatever you're using, before adding the yeast. I've had better results doing that, but you know, most recipes just say to put it all in together, and I'm sure that that would be fine. So get that a little dissolved there, and then it's 2 1/4 teaspoon of yeast. I'm just gonna kind of sprinkle it on top of my sugar milk mixture here. I absolutely love making bread of any kind. I think it's such I don't know, it's like one of those skills that really makes me feel like a homesteader, like making bread. I'm like, look at me, a little house on the prairie over here. I love it. So we just have to give that like 5 minutes to activate and get foamy, and then we can move on. So I'll be right back. Okay, so our yeast mixture is foamy and ready to go. Awesome. So now we're gonna mix in all the remaining ingredients except for half a cup of the flour. It calls for 3 1/2 cups of flour. You're reserving half a cup of it in case the dough is sticky. If it's too sticky to work with, then you add it in a little bit at a time. So I'm gonna go ahead and put everything in. We've got 1/4 cup of honey, which I just went ahead and measured out while we were waiting. And then I've got 1/4 cup of unsalted butter, melted and then slightly cooled is what the instructions said. Again, this is Sally's Baking Addiction. I will link it below. That's what it said to do. So that is what I did. Okay, and then it was 1 egg and 1 egg yolk. So I'm gonna use one of these little bowls here. Make sure these are good. I just bought these. Yep. Beautiful. There's the egg. And then 1 egg yolk. I don't know how you guys do it, but I do this situation here. Okay, and now the egg white is there, and I can just toss in the yolk. Beautiful. And I'll probably cook up that this egg white and just give it to Benny. My chickens are not old enough for me to give them eggs yet, I don't think. All right, so we've got the honey, the eggs, the butter's in there, a little bit of salt. And then 3 cups, and this recipe called for bread flour. This is actually my very first time using bread flour. And I don't know, I guess that website's pretty good about giving you little tips and tricks. So maybe it mentions that you can use other flour, but I have bread flour, so I'm gonna go ahead and use it. And now we let it run. And I'm trying to remember what the recipe said. I think that you want it to pull away from the sides of the bowl. You want it to be thick and soft and sticky, but not too sticky. So we'll see what we end up with. Okay, it did pull away from the sides of the bowl. It looks a little sticky on the bottom, but I'm gonna, yeah, I think that feels a little sticky. I'm gonna add a little bit of flour, just a little bit, and run it a little longer. Maybe that much to start. Now I'm gonna kind of sprinkle it all over so that it's not just incorporated in one spot. Let's try again. Okay. Oh, much better. Still a little sticky, but less than it was. Okay, so before I get that out, I'm gonna sprinkle a little bit of flour onto my work surface here. Oh yeah, still a little sticky, but that's okay. I think it'll be remedied with this flour. All right, and we're just gonna do a little kneading here. Oh yeah, oh, I love making bread. Okay, still a little sticky. I'm just gonna do a little sprinkle. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with this, I think. It's definitely thick and soft like the recipe said that it should be, so that's really fun. All right, and then I'm gonna do the book, which helps create air pockets when you're making bread. You just kind of fold it a couple of times like you're closing a book. That's definitely a trick when you're making pizza dough. Not sure if you're supposed to do it for all bread, but we gonna. All right, and then I'm gonna kind of just form it into a ball. And I have a bowl here that I prepared while I was waiting for the yeast to activate, and I've got some olive oil in here, nice and greased up, seam side down in the bowl, and then you just kind of want to make sure that it gets coated on all sides with olive oil. And then we're going to cover it up with some cling wrap and let it rise. The recipe said rise time 2 hours, which is why I did this first, so that we can move on to something else. So I'm going to get this covered, clean up a little bit, get my ingredients out for the next thing that we're moving on to, and I'll be back. Okay, so the next thing we're moving on to is the garlic, actually, for the mashed potatoes, because we're gonna roast some garlic. If you've never roasted garlic before, you're missing out. It's absolutely incredible. We're gonna roast some garlic for the mashed potatoes because we're making creamy garlic mashed potatoes. So you start with a head of garlic, like this, and you wanna kind of peel off the outer layer, which I'm gonna make a mess here, which is fine. The skin, this like papery skin, you want to get that off. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't finish my thought. We're gonna move on to this because it roasts in the oven for 45 minutes. So I want to get that moving and get that roasting, and then we can work on something else. We're gonna do the pie next, but I wanted to go ahead and get the garlic going. So peel off, and you know, I'm not crazy about it. I get off as much of it as I can. I don't want to sit here and fiddle with it for too long. So basically what you want to do is, these are all individual cloves, and you want to kind of cut the top off so that the olive oil can kind of seep in there and soften it up. So that's what we're doing, which I'm a little nervous. That's like a really close cut. I'm working on my knife skills. I've been watching YouTube videos. Thank you, Gordon Ramsay. So I've got the claw holding my knife. So I'm gonna try, which I don't have a super sharp kitchen knife. I'd like one. Okay. Oh, that wasn't bad. So what I was trying to do, and did, albeit nervously, was cut the tops off to expose the inside, like this. Let me make sure that you can see this. So that's what you want it to look like, because the olive oil is gonna get inside here and really soften this up, and it's gonna be so delicious in our mashed potatoes. So let me get all this junk off our pan here. I'll clean that up in just a second. So you definitely want to use like a cookie sheet or a baking pan of some kind, unless you have the bottom of your oven really protected, because this will seep through your foil. At least it has for me. I don't know what I did. So I'm only gonna do one. I like garlic. I don't like overwhelming garlic. So, you know, I want my mashed potatoes to have a garlic flavor, but I don't want it to be so in your face. So we're just gonna do one head of garlic. So you take your head of garlic, put it on your aluminum foil on your baking sheet, and then you're just sprinkling some olive oil, and you wanna make sure that it really gets down in there and isn't just being kind of drizzled over the side. You want it to be inside the garlic. So I'm even gonna kind of pull it apart a little so that I know that the garlic is definitely seeping down in there. And I think I'm even gonna give it a little bit more. That's really important, because the very first time I tried to roast garlic, I don't think any of the olive oil really got in there, and it was really all just kind of drizzled over the side, and it did not really work all that well, if I'm being honest. I roasted it, and then when I took it out, it was still hard, so I was like, maybe the olive oil didn't really get in there. So then you just kind of close up the foil on your baking sheet, and I have my oven preheated to 375. I haven't really found the sweet spot yet. We're gonna give that a shot. I've also done 425. That's the temperature that I did when it turned out hard, so I dialed it back a bit. We're gonna do 375 for 45 minutes, and we'll see. Okay, we're moving on to the pie for a couple of reasons. First, I am gonna use my stand mixer for it, and I would really like to get my stand mixer off the counter to free up some space, because this is when it really starts to get stressful for me, having such a small kitchen, because I've got a lot going on here and a very small amount of space to do it, and it stresses me out. So that's okay. We're gonna go ahead and do what we have to do and then get some things off the counter. So I have to use my food processor for this, and this is taking up a huge amount of space. That's okay. I only need it in the beginning, and then we can get it out of here. Stand mixer, getting it out of here. So let's go ahead. I'm combining two recipes here. I'm making a chocolate banana peanut butter pie, and I'm using the crust from one recipe and the filling from another recipe. I'll just make one big recipe for you in the description. I really liked the recipe from this one for the crust. Basically what we're gonna do in our food processor, we're going to put 1.5 cups of vanilla wafer cookies. It says about 30 cookies. I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm probably just gonna put the whole dang box in here. It doesn't say how many are in here. We just gonna do the whole thing. That's probably 30 cookies, right? I love vanilla wafer cookies. I'm gonna go good one at a time. Had to give a few to Tom. All right. I'm really starting to smell the garlic. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and get these ground up. Beautiful. Oh, I love this food processor. Thank you, Mom and Dad. And then we add 1.5 cups of packed light brown sugar. Might have to open a new one. Remember, if something says packed light brown sugar, you have to really pack it into, that's a form of measurement, so you have to really pack it into your measuring cup. So there's 1/2 cup of packed. I'm glad I'm looking at the recipe. I actually only need 1/2 cup of the brown sugar for the crust. The other cup of brown sugar is for the actual pie. So I'm gonna set that aside. And I already put the 1/2 cup in there. And then 3 tablespoons of unsalted butter melted. I'm just gonna add that in there. And I definitely think I want every drop of the butter in here, because that's what's gonna help this crust stay together. So that's in there. All right, and let's get this process together here. All right, so now we're gonna press the crust into whatever dish plan on using for this. So it does say to spray it with cooking spray. And then we have to press this mixture into our dish. I'm gonna kind of try to get it up the sides a little bit. Oh, it smells so good. Definitely probably a little crumblier than I need, and that's likely due to the fact that I think I put more cookies in there than it needed. So it's a little drier, but it's just for me and Tom, so I'm just gonna go with it. It's fine. Hopefully being in the freezer, and once we put the filling in, it'll help hold it together. Hopefully. All right, now we're gonna go ahead and do the filling, which I wanted the other recipe for. So let's see what it says. So we have got, in the mixer, we're doing cream cheese, a whole package. Oh, I've got it over here. My stove top gets really hot when my oven is on. This needed to be softened, and I took it out this morning, but it still was kind of cold. So I just set it on my stove top, and now it's nice and softened. So 1 8-ounce package of cream cheese, and in parentheses it says do not use non-fat. And then 1 cup, it says chunky peanut butter. I'm gonna use creamy, Tom doesn't like chunky. 1/2 cup of granulated sugar and 2 teaspoons of vanilla. So we're going to get all of that mixed in our mixer here. And then we're gonna make a chocolate mixture to go in with that, but we'll do that in a second. Let's focus on this first. So we're gonna put in our cream cheese and then a cup of peanut butter. Am I finished with all of my dry ingredients? Yes. Well, it does say a cup of chocolate chips for the next step. So let me just go ahead and measure that real quick before I move on to the peanut butter, which I think this is probably gonna be about a cup. I don't know if you've watched any of my other videos, you've definitely heard me say that a huge tip to make your life easier in the kitchen is to measure out your dry ingredients before your wet ingredients. Otherwise, you're having to like rinse and dry off your measuring supply, your measuring cup, measuring spoon, whatever. And it just takes a lot of extra time when you're trying to be efficient. So I always measure my dry ingredients first. At least I try. I'm not perfect. Sometimes it still doesn't work out. Okay, that looks good enough to me. Get that in there. And I mean, honestly, the peanut butter is definitely something you could eyeball. If I were just making this quietly without filming it, I definitely would have just eyeballed it, but I'll try and do all the things. So there's that. And then, so we've got the cream cheese in there, the cup of peanut butter, and then 1/2 cup of sugar. Okay, and then we've got 2 teaspoons of vanilla. Yeah, 2 teaspoons of vanilla, which by the way, if you watched my homemade vanilla extract video, that sucker is, I could honestly start using it, but I'm gonna finish this up, give it that as much time as possible to infuse, and then I'm gonna start, you'll start seeing it. And I'm so excited. I checked it today when I was getting out my flour and stuff, and it was so dark and beautiful. Ugh, I can't wait. Okay, and let's get this baby mixed together here. Okay, that's pretty good and mixed. Now the next thing it wanted us to do, we've got a cup of chocolate chips and 3/4 a cup of heavy cream. I am missing my 3/4 measuring cup, so I'm just gonna use my 1/4 and do it 3 times. So this is a really good trick. I'm actually glad that the recipe wants me to do this because I can teach you something. This is a really great way to make a chocolate sauce quickly. If you want to make this recipe, this pie that I'm showing you today, and you want to just buy chocolate syrup, that's totally fine. You can skip this step, but this is an awesome, awesome, awesome way to make a homemade chocolate sauce because it's just chocolate chips and heavy cream, and you're gonna put it in the microwave for like 10 to 20 seconds at a time and stir it, you know, take it out, stir it, put it in 10, 20 seconds, take it out, stir it, and then gradually as it warms up, it'll really blend together beautifully, and you'll have this really awesome like milk chocolate sauce. And we're gonna use it for the pie today, but it's a really excellent trick if you're trying to make chocolate sauce at home. If you're not wanting to buy the store stuff, or you want to make this recipe and you have everything except chocolate sauce, you know, that kind of thing. So really great trick. Excited that it wanted me to do that. Let me just give this a little stir here. And then I'm going to head over to my microwave, which we have in our dining room, because I have nowhere to put it in my kitchen. And I'll be right back. All right, and here is that chocolate sauce. It's, in my opinion, a little runnier than I would have wanted. I don't know if I would have put in as much heavy cream as the recipe called for, but it's okay because we're putting it in the filling, so it'll probably be really good for thinning this up a little so it's not so thick. I am, however, going to reserve a little bit of this to drizzle on top of the pie, and whatever I have left, I'll probably add in a little bit of powdered sugar to thicken it up a little so it's not so runny as a decorative chocolate, you know what I mean? So, but it's fine for the filling. It's actually probably what they were going for in the recipe to thin this up. So we're just gonna pour most of it in. And reserve just a little bit. I just wanna drizzle it, so I don't need a lot. We'll go ahead and mix that together. Okay, definitely gonna have to scrape down the sides of this one. But look at that. Ugh. Smells so good. This is gonna be a really, really good pie. Oh yeah, there's a ton of peanut butter still hiding in here, so let's do that again. The directions said to beat it on medium-low speed for 2 to 3 minutes, and I did do it on medium-low speed for like probably a minute and a half, but then I did put it all the way up because I almost want my filling to be whipped, you know? So this is what we ended up with in terms of texture. I mean, and it's pretty thick, but it's not, doesn't seem to me like it's so thick that it won't be enjoyable. So that's it. We're gonna go ahead and put it in our crust that we've already prepared. I'm trying to be careful because I'm not wearing an apron and I love this shirt, so I should probably put an apron on if I'm gonna be dealing with things like chocolate. So the hard part for me, because I made my crust accidentally crumblier than it needs to be, the hard part is going to be spreading this around without disturbing it too much. So I just have to very gently kind of spread it in here, because the crust will just very easily come away with the filling. Okay, so the last thing that I wanted to do for this pie is chop up some banana slices. One of the pie recipes calls for banana, like it's a peanut butter banana pie. The other one doesn't. I like the idea of the banana. I think it's gonna be really cute, and I like adding fruits or veggies wherever I can into anything I'm making. So having some banana coins will be super cute and decorative, and it'll just add more flavor to the pie, you know? Let's start putting these on here. I love it. This is gonna be so yummy. A little disappointed in the crust. I didn't make a super wise choice there, but that's okay. I'm sure Tom will still love it, even if it is a little crumbly. Buddy, do you want a banana? Do you want a piece of banana? Come here. Come here. Good boy. Oh, so good. Take it out of the kitchen. Thank you. So I definitely want to move along here because my garlic only has 4.5 minutes left until it's ready, and then I want to move right on to the mashed potatoes. So this did not really thicken up that much, so I am going to add a little powdered sugar just to help it thicken a little bit. And I'm just going to eyeball it. I'm not really that worried about it. It's just for decoration. So I'm just going to take the spoon here and just kind of drizzle it right across. Okay, sorry, my GoPro died, so I'm letting it charge for a little bit, and I switched over to my phone. I'm trying to film with my phone less now that I have a camera, but gotta do what you gotta do. So here is our pie, and I think it looks absolutely delicious. I went a little heavy on the chocolate drizzle because I had so much chocolate. So I'm gonna cover this in probably foil, and I'm gonna go ahead and stick that in the freezer. I'll do that here in a second. While I was letting things charge and cleaning up and stuff, I went ahead and I peeled and diced 6 potatoes. What kind of potatoes? I went with, I got these at Aldi, so I probably just went with whatever they had, to be honest with you. I have golden potatoes. The recipe calls for, yeah, Yukon Gold potatoes. Perfect, nailed it. So, peeled and diced 6 of them. Not everybody peels their potatoes. That's a choice that you have to make. I peel mine. So, we're gonna go ahead and get these into the pot of boiling water that I have going over here, and we're gonna let them boil for probably 20 minutes. And the purpose of that is to get them nice and soft and ready to be mashed. So let me go ahead and throw those in there. You may have noticed I threw on an apron. We're about to get messy, and I really, really want to protect this shirt. So, next thing we're going to talk about are the rolls. We're going to go ahead and get these. This could probably stand to rise for a little bit longer, but it has risen, and I really got to pick up the speed here. So we're going to go ahead and start thinking about these. Let me get the recipe out for it. Also, just so we're all caught up, I took the garlic out of the oven. It was finished. I decreased the temperature to 350. It was at 375 for the garlic. The rolls want 350. So 350 for the rolls. This is the dish I'm going to put them in. And let me get out some flour. So we are going to lightly flour our surface here, because this baby is going to be sticky, especially from having all the olive oil on it. So you definitely want, even if it felt good when you initially put it in the bowl, you're going to want a little flour now for sure. So take the cling wrap off, but keep it. And then I'm just gonna take my rings off here and punch it down. And then the surface, and we're just gonna kind of knead it. So I'm just giving it a couple turns here. And then just like you saw me do before, I'm gonna do some folding here like a book. Oh, this dough is so soft, you guys. These rolls. I've never made these rolls before. I'm very excited. Okay, so we've got a ball, just like before. I've got my handy dandy tool here, and I'm gonna cut it, try to be precisely in half here. So I've got 2 halves, and then you wanna cut each half into 8 pieces. And we're gonna have a total of 16 rolls. Should anyway, if I can manage to do this properly. I'm so bad at this. I'm not good at eyeballing proportions, I guess. So I think I'm just gonna cut this down the middle here, like this, I suppose. Okay, and then I think I'll cut each of these into 4 pieces. The instructions on the website said that they're going to be approximately golf ball sized, and I'm imagining that'll be the case here. Okay, so I'm just going to make them into little balls. Yeah, I guess that's maybe a little bigger than golf ball. And then, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and spray this. Okay, and I'm just going to start setting these in here. Hopefully my dish is big enough. But that's what we're working with for the rolls. I kept my cling wrap. I'm gonna cover these up. And then they rise for an additional hour, but to be honest with you, it probably won't be that long because I've been setting these on the warm stove that I was telling you about because the oven's on, and that rose, it's not been 2 hours. So hopefully these will rise fast, and then we can move on with these. Gave my potatoes a quick stir. I'm gonna clean up here really quick. And then we're gonna move on to the meatloaf. So for my meatloaf, I want a little bit of basil and oregano. So I figured I'd bring you out here with me really quick and show you the garden. My tomatoes are getting so big, I love it. So we're just gonna pick some basil here. Take a couple of these leaves. It's 2 seconds away from raining out here. So I'm coming out at a good time, let's see. Oh, you guys. Basil just smells so good. I feel like that must just be a universal thing that we can all agree on, is that basil smells amazing. There's some of that, and a little bit of, what do I want? These guys are putting off flowers. So I'll take some of it because it probably thinks its job is done, and it is not. So take a couple of these leaves. And I'll take a few of these too. Ooh, these ones are really fuzzy. Okay, I don't want a ton. Just a little flavor, a little something something. Okay, let's head back inside. Okay, I went outside and picked some basil and oregano. You're probably gonna be able to hear my potatoes, by the way, they're being very loud. So I'm just gonna chop this really quick. Here's the basil. Cut off the stems. And then I'm gonna roll it up. Thank you, Gordon Ramsay. And I'm just gonna chop, chop, chop. And then just kind of chop it up a little further. Okay, and that's ready. That's gonna be so yummy in there. These leaves are smaller. It's gonna be a little bit harder to do, but we'll try. Just gonna cut the stems off, roll these little babies up, and same thing. Chop, chop, chop. The recipe actually, okay, well first I feel like I need to tell you that this is a recipe from a website called Stay at Home Chef. I'm pretty sure. I'll put it in the description. I've been making this for Tom for years. It's his favorite thing that I make. And it was really cute actually. I went to find it was in my saved Facebook videos, and I noticed that in the comments I tagged him in it 5 years ago and said, hey, do you want me to try to make this? And he was like, hell yeah. And I've been making it for him ever since. It's a solid recipe, very, very good. The glaze that goes on this meatloaf is so good. And it calls for dried oregano and basil, but I have fresh. I haven't dried any yet this year. So that's what we're gonna use, and I'm sure it'll be fine. So I'm gonna try and be quick here because the potatoes only have a few more minutes. We have ground beef. I have made this with ground turkey before, and it's also very good. Hang on, Benny wants to go outside. You want to go outside before it rains? I have made it with ground turkey before, and it was delicious. But I am gonna use beef this time. And also, I never look at, I don't even remember how much the recipe tells you to use. I always use, I'm assuming probably more than it needs because I make 2 meatloafs so that it'll last, because Tom goes through this like it's nothing because he loves it so much. A cup of breadcrumbs, but I'm probably gonna use more like a cup and a half probably. I could use 2 cups, I guess, but I don't want it to be too crumbly, I guess. I don't know. And I just get the unseasoned breadcrumbs. Again, personal choice. If you want to get seasoned ones, you absolutely can. A little bit more. There we go. And then half a cup of milk. I'm probably going to put in 2/3 a cup of milk. I'm real big on eyeballing the meatloaf recipe. I've made it so many times that I definitely have a good idea of like what works and what doesn't. So I am just kind of, you know, I'm not truly doubling it. So if you decide to make this, you just kind of have to follow your heart and see. The only thing that you really have to get right is the thickness of your meatloaf, because you are baking this. I would still call this cooking, but it does get baked. And if you make your meatloaf too thick, then the specifications for the time and the temperature won't match up anymore, and that's when you're gonna start running into a problem because your meatloaf won't cook all the way through. So the breadcrumb, milk, mixture, it really doesn't matter. It's not that big of a deal. You can play with it, but you have to be careful of your thickness of your meatloaf. You don't want it to be too thick. 2 tablespoons of Worcestershire sauce. I'm probably gonna do 3. Okay, and at this point, I'm gonna take my rings off. You can absolutely wear gloves if this skeeves you out. I've done it so many times it really doesn't bother me. And you're just gonna get it all mashed together. Oh, you know what? I actually did forget something. When I make this with ground turkey, for some reason I've noticed that it doesn't hold together as well as with ground beef. And so I do add an egg. I have ground beef in here this time, but I really like adding the egg. I like the texture that it gives me. So I am gonna go ahead, I forgot about that. I'm gonna go ahead and do that. That's my one alteration that I really make to this recipe. I add an egg, and it really helps bind everything together, and I really like that a lot. And if you're gonna make this with ground turkey, I would recommend doing that. If you're gonna use ground beef, you don't really have to, I guess, but honestly, I really like doing it. And then you can kind of use your own judgment as you're mashing this together. If you don't feel like you added enough breadcrumbs, add more. I'm honestly probably gonna add a little bit more breadcrumb. Now the glaze is Tom's favorite part. Obviously the mozzarella helps, but the glaze is his favorite part, and I've actually made this glaze in the past, a triple recipe I think, and I used it for like appetizer meatballs for a party that I had, and everybody loved it. The glaze is so, so good. Props to stay-at-home chef for this, because this glaze is top-notch. So all you need is ketchup, 1 cup of ketchup, but I always double this. So even with making the meatloaves, I double this because I want these to be super, super glazy, because again, it's Tom's favorite part. So, and yeah, I'm not even gonna measure this. This is close to 2 cups, I bet. And just like I do with tomato sauce, I'm gonna put a little splash of water in here, try to get every bit of this ketchup. A glaze, it's gonna be baked anyway, so it's okay if it's like a little watery. Don't want it to be a lot watery, but we're gonna do 1/2 cup of brown sugar. The brown sugar is so, so good in here. I love that it calls for it. Really sweetens up the sauce. But then you have the Worcestershire sauce in there too. Worcestershire sauce and brown sugar to me go hand in hand. They're so good when they're together. 1 tablespoon of Worcestershire, but definitely 2, if not 3. I'm just gonna, to my heart's content. 1 tablespoon of red wine vinegar. This one I am gonna measure. I'm gonna do 2 tablespoons of it. You don't wanna go too overboard with this because it's very strong. But it definitely gives this sauce this glaze, I guess, what it needs. Gosh, I just wanna like give, I don't know her name, who runs Stay-at-Home Chef or whatever. I just wanna like meet her. So smart. Her recipes are so good. And then it calls for cloves of crushed garlic, which I could do because I have garlic, but I'm like really cutting it close on time here. So we're just gonna use the minced garlic that I have in the fridge. Cheat a little bit. But you definitely want garlic in here. It adds a really good flavor. Mix this baby together. Okay, I'm gonna use the cutting board and the knife that I just used to cut up that basil and oregano to slice up some fresh mozzarella cheese. I get this from Aldi's, and it's so good. Okay, this is the biggest casserole dish I own. This thing is freaking huge, and I like to use this for meatloaves because I have enough room to put both of them side by side. I did go ahead and throw a little bit more breadcrumb in here since I'm gonna have to get my hands dirty again anyway. Still no rings. The meatloaf wants to be baked at 350, which is exactly what the rolls want to be baked at, so that's perfect. I've got it preheated already, which is great because we're about to put these in, and then I think we might be able to put the rolls in right behind it. We'll check them. I'll show you after we get this figured out. So, go ahead and blend that again a little bit. Here's how I like to do it, and it works out really well for me in terms of maintaining that thickness like I cautioned you about. So, take some meatloaf, and I like to go ahead and try and form the bottom. The bottom's going to be pretty wide because you are not only trying to make sure that it's nice and thin, but you also have to fit the mozzarella in there too. Got to remember that. So I like to have my bottom be pretty thin and spread out. You don't want a big, fat, thick bottom to your meatloaf. And then let's get the second one. Just do them side by side, right next to each other. And then you lay out the cheese. And I cheese the heck out of these things. I want mozzarella seeping out when I take this out of the oven. I want each bite to be filled mozzarella to the max because we are cheese lovers in this house. Just like I'm playing with Play-Doh, I start to get my sections thin before I even try to put it on, because I want this to maintain its shape. So I don't want to try to be spreading this out too much once I've placed it on top. So I go ahead and get it kind of thin, and then I just lay it over top and kind of form it together. And that has worked out really well for me over the years. And then you can just throw in little pieces here and there if you see any holes, because wherever you have a hole in your meatloaf, mozzarella is definitely gonna come out. Okay, I did have a little bit of extra ground beef left, so I just made some meatballs that I'm just gonna stick right in the middle here, cover them with the glaze. Fine, just have a couple of meatballs. I'm done touching the ground beef, so I'm gonna wash my hands. Okay, and then you spoon on the glaze. And I like to just take spoonfuls and drop it on top, and then use the bottom of the spoon to kind of move it around, because you're not drowning them for the baking process, because remember, you're gonna put more glaze on at the end. But having a little bit of glaze on in the beginning, the flavors really bake into the meatloaf, and it's just, oh, so good, so good. I'm gonna spoon a little bit over the meatballs that I made here. Also, I like using the back of the spoon like this because it helps me really smooth out the meatloaf itself, which can be kind of lumpy from where I Frankensteined it together. So it lets me like really smooth it out and make it look pretty, so I think that's nice. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this in the oven, 350 degrees, for about 45 minutes, I think. Okay, here's the progress on the rolls. So these are gonna go into our 350 degree preheated oven along with the mozzarella stuffed meatloaf, and they're gonna bake for 18 to 21 minutes is what the recipe said online. I'm gonna definitely check them at probably 16 because I have a gas oven and it likes to bake things really unreasonably fast. So I'm gonna go ahead and stick these in, and I'll be back. Okay, so I'm ready to finish up these potatoes. I drained them and threw them right back in the pot that I had them in the first place. I want to first put in the cream cheese. We've got one whole block of cream cheese. So I want to put this in first because these potatoes are really hot. My phone ran out of storage, so I'm back to my GoPro, which is a little bit more charged now, so that's fine. I put the cream cheese in here, was really all you missed, and then I started to open up the garlic and noticed it wasn't recording. So here's what we're working with the garlic. It's not hot anymore, it's been hanging out for a while. And so let's see if this works. Here, all you have to do is squeeze the cloves out. Oh yeah, beautiful. Look at that. It's like paste, it's garlic paste, beautiful. So we're just gonna squeeze these in here. Oh my gosh, these potatoes are gonna be ridiculously good. And then it wants 2 tablespoons of milk. I'll start with that, but I'm certainly not afraid to add more milk to get the consistency that I want. I'm very particular about my potatoes. I'm sure a lot of you are. So let's just match these up a bit and see where we get. Now, the longer you boil your potatoes, the easier they are to mash because they get softer and softer, you know, the longer they boil. These were boiling for a while. They feel pretty good, I think. Definitely going to be adding more milk, 100%. I'm also going to add some salt and some black pepper. I think I want to add a little bit of onion powder. That's kind of my secret weapon. I always add a little bit of onion powder to my mashed potatoes. I love onion powder. I think it's almost sweet and it adds a really great flavor. So I always add a little onion powder to my mashed potatoes. This is it. Perfect. Okay, I've got my mashed potatoes put away over here. And then I took the rolls out. They're not quite done yet. 17 minutes is when I took them out. They definitely are still very soft in the middle, but I wanted to go ahead and brush the honey butter on. They're probably only going to be in the oven another 3, maybe 4 minutes. And I want this to infuse. So all I did was 2 tablespoons of butter and a hefty spoonful of honey. The butter I pre-melted, added the honey, and then it wasn't really combining very well, so I stuck the whole thing back in the microwave for another 20 seconds, and now it's really well combined. So I'm just gonna brush this on the tops here. You can see they're done enough that they're holding their shape as I'm spreading the butter on top, so they are almost done. These ones in the middle, I think, just need a few more minutes. Let me get this back in the oven for, like I said, 3-4 minutes. I'll check it at 3 minutes. All right, I think now I'm just going to do some dishes, clean the counter. The only thing we're waiting on are the rolls, and then the meatloaf still has a while, probably another 20 minutes. So I'm gonna get cleaned up. I think I'm gonna make myself something to eat because I haven't eaten anything yet today and it's up almost noon. Okay folks, let's see if we were successful in getting these to cook all the way through. There's a lot of moisture, a lot of liquid in the bottom of this pan. I think a lot of it came from the mozzarella. Mozzarella is a very wet cheese, so I think that's what a lot of that is. I'm just gonna leave it. I'm really not that worried about it. What I wanna know is if these are cooked all the way through. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut into one of them, and then whatever I get, I'm just gonna give to Tom for some lunch because I'm getting ready to leave in a few minutes. That way he can have something to eat. So let's cut into this. There we go. Yeah, looks done to me. So I'm gonna give this to Tom to eat. I think I'm gonna throw a little mashed potato on there for him, but that's good, you guys. And then look at that cheese in there. Oh my gosh, yum. So what I'm gonna do to store this, I'm just going to throw some foil over it, and that's why I do it in this pan, so I can just throw the whole thing into the fridge. Obviously not right now, this is very hot. This literally just came out of the oven. So I'm gonna let this cool, cover it in foil, put it in the fridge, hopefully before I leave, but if not, Tom can take care of it. Let me move this to the back because I want to talk to you about our rolls. These have been out of the oven for a while now. Let's get one of them. Let's see if I can get one of these out of here. Please ignore my sink. That is really, really full of dishes. The dishwasher is running right now. Okay, let's see here. Let's go for this little guy right here. Oh yeah, baby. Look at that. Let me see if I can show you. Look at how flaky and soft, so soft. And it's got that delicious honey butter glaze. I'm gonna give this to Tom. So soft. Okay, so what we ended up with, we've got our honey butter rolls. We've got our mozzarella stuffed meatloaf with that delicious glaze. And here is a plate of food that I'm gonna go give Tom. We've got our roasted garlic mashed potatoes. This container here was just a little bit of, I didn't record it because I was in a hurry to get out of here, but after the 45 minutes, I took this out, spooned more sauce over top, and I still had a bunch of sauce left. So I just put it in a little container here for Tom to have if he decides he wants it. And then we also made that peanut butter chocolate banana freezer pie. It's in the freezer, I'm gonna leave it. We roasted the garlic. That was so good. And I'm really excited. I feel like we did a lot today. We went over a lot of stuff, a lot of tips and tricks in the kitchen for making this kind of stuff. Let me arrange this a little nicer here. And overall, I'm really pleased with how this went. I feel like we did a great job staying on task, moving from one task to another. The more I do this, the more efficient I'm becoming, and I'm really thrilled about that. So thanks so much for hanging out with me today. Don't forget the recipes for these are gonna be in the description, either the link to the people who own the recipes, like the honey butter rolls, for example, or the peanut butter pie. I kind of threw a few different recipes together, so I'm gonna write an original down in the description. So go down there to find those. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. If you wanna see more content like this, actually, let me just throw something in really quick and say the reason I wanted to do this is because my bulk cooking day video has over 200 views, way more than any of my other videos, and I was like, okay, is this what people want to see, like for me to be getting this many views? So I'm doing another one. That's kind of what this was. Not quite as bulk as that one. We didn't do really any freezer stuff. Pie doesn't really count. It's still for this week. But let me know if this is kind of your jam, if you're into this, and I will happily give you more content like this. I'm doing this anyway. I'm preparing meals for us on Sunday. So let me know if you liked this. Leave a comment below saying that you liked it, or if you have any comments or questions about it. Please subscribe if you haven't already. And thank you so much for hanging out with me in my shoebox kitchen today, and I hope that you have an awesome week. Thanks so much. Bye.